Hey everyone, Dr. Lewis here. So today we're going to be talking about thesis statements. And thesis statements are one of those things that they're an extremely important skill to master in papers, but they're also kind of hard to teach and hard to learn. So they're difficult, they're tricky. So it's hard to come up with one sentence that encapsulates your entire argument and everything that you want to say in an effective and succinct way. So this will be our lecture, hopefully clarifying the thesis statement in conjunction with our textbook reading over thesis statements. So an analytical thesis statement states your point of view. You state your point of view on the topic directly, and it's often in one sentence at the end of the first paragraph. The sentence is the thesis statement, and it serves as a summary of the argument you'll make in the rest of your paper. So again, it's usually one sentence at the end of your first paragraph. So you shouldn't have a thesis statement that's an entire paragraph long, and you also shouldn't have one that is located in your conclusion. It also focuses on an argument or something that can be debated. So this is kind of at the center of where a lot of mistakes are made. So a thesis statement can't just be an observation or just a statement. And we'll go over very specific examples in just a moment about that. So how do I know if my thesis is strong? The first question, again, the focus is going to be on argument. Have I taken a position that others might challenge or oppose? If your thesis simply states facts that no one would or even could disagree with, it's possible that you're simply providing a summary rather than making an argument. So if you're saying apples are generally seen as healthy for you, then that is not an argument. If you say something like, because apples are so healthy for you, every adult should be required to eat at least one a day, then that gets closer to an argument. So you want something that people can disagree with. So with that first statement, I mean, you might find people who argue that apples are healthy, but not many. Like, there's probably not many people who are like, no, Dr. Lewis, no. But with that second statement, like, do you feel like you should be legally obligated to eat an apple a day? Then you could be like, no, and you have arguments against that. So that's immediately an argument rather than a summary. Continued, is my thesis statement specific enough? You don't want to be vague. You don't want to use vague, unclear language. So if you have words like good or successful, try to be more specific. Why is it good? What specifically makes something successful? So does good mean that you liked it? And if you liked it, then why? Does good mean healthy? Does successful mean money? Does successful mean like how are you judging how successful or effective something was? Or again, the word good, which is one of those words that we use all the time and we know what it means, but it can refer to pretty much everything. It can refer to morality. It can refer to food. This tastes good. It can refer to just a lot of, it basically means anything that's vaguely positive. So try to be very specific. So maybe instead of good, you can say has great nutritional value because it contains these vitamins. So, like define actually what good means to you. Feel free to use somewhat flowery language. So use strong verbs. Use descriptive terms. So if you just say says, like this film says that, use something more powerful. Like think about the word exposes. this film exposes racist tensions in America, versus this film says something about racist tensions in America. That the first sentence basically says the same thing, but it's a lot more powerful. And with this, I don't mean, go to thesaurus.com and copy and paste a bunch of words you don't know into your thesis. You can go too far on the other side, but just, keep it in mind. Keep it in mind to kind of work on your language and work on good language. And then, so what? And this is probably, other than having a thesis statement that's too much summary, it's the other problem with thesis statements that I see most frequently. So does my thesis pass the so what response? So if the reader's first response is so what, then you need to clarify, forge a relationship, or connect to a larger issue. So the so what is why something matters. Why should I or anyone else care about what you have to say? Why should I care about this paper topic? What are the consequences? What is at stake? So that needs to be clear in your thesis statement. And again, we'll look at examples in just a minute that clarify all of these issues. So there's certain successful elements of a thesis statement. So you want to have the text or subject you are analyzing. So you might refer to it directly in the sentence before the thesis, but it needs to be clear what you're talking about. So you don't want your paper to be like a detective novel or detective story where I have to read to the conclusion to say, oh, this is what they're talking about. Oh. No, you want to lay out your terms very clearly, including your topic or main sources. So it should be very clear that you're talking, or it should have been very clear that you're talking about crash in that first paper, immediately in the first paragraph. You also want to have your evidence. So what exactly are you using to make a point? So what are you actually going to be talking about? Are you going to talk about scientific facts? Are you going to be talking about historical evidence? Are you going to be talking about media images? So what's going to be your evidence to make a point about the text or subject? And then finally, what your so what is. What are you actually arguing? Why should I care? What's the so what? So you want to think complex, and you want to look at a bigger picture. And this is partially why we have a theme for this course. Because if this is hard for you to think about having a bigger picture, fall back on that language. So for a more sustainable society, for a more interconnected community, that language is what you can use to be your so what or your bigger picture. You also want to play with your words. So this is a process, a thesis statement. You come up with a draft and then you work on it until it becomes better. So think about the first example. This company has emotional appeals in their commercials about marketing toward young children and wants this to change. Okay, so I kind of get what that means. That's a good example of so what though? Like, why should I care? What exactly is this even saying? Are emotional appeals bad? Is marketing towards young children always bad? Who wants this to change? Why do they want it to change? So this is a good example of kind of an initial draft. It's not that it's so terrible it could never become a thesis statement, but that you have to work on it a little bit. So think about sentence number 2, which was the final draft. This company utilizes emotional appeals in commercials in order to expose the dangers of irresponsible marketing toward vulnerable young children and call for more corporate responsibility when dealing with impressionable youth. Okay, like this essentially says the same thing, but you see that there's much, much more loaded, powerful language. So, I mean, we changed has to utilizes. And then we clarified that they're using emotional appeals to expose a danger. Okay. And that this marketing is irresponsible and toward vulnerable children, not just young children. And then call for more corporate responsibility. So this is clarifying wants this to change. So this is clarifying the exact change that should be happening. So when dealing with impressionable youths. So again, much more powerful language, much clearer about what they're trying to say and argue. Finally, you should consider this to be kind of a road for your paper. It tells the reader what to expect from the rest of the paper, and it guides what you talk about for the rest of the paper. So your thesis statement is really like the map. It has, this is what I'm going to talk about, and this is what I'm going to prove through the course of this paper. So it's also your so what. So this helps guide your entire paper, and you should revisit it throughout to help with cohesiveness. So each paragraph should somehow relate to your thesis. So at the very end of the paragraph in a basic format, you analyze, and then that somehow connects to your thesis. So you should relate back to an argument at the end of every paragraph, and this argument relates back to your thesis. So again, it's something that follows. It follows you throughout the entire paper, and you want that. You want it to be cohesive and organized. Some common mistakes. So no thesis at all, nothing that could be considered an arguable point. Anthony is a character in the film Crash who experiences many people. That has absolutely no argument. Like, okay, I saw the movie too. I know that he is a character in the film who experiences people. Same with number 2. A subculture is a group of people within a larger culture that share certain values. Okay, yep, you define the word. Neither of those have argument in them. So think about fixing those by inserting argumentative language. So maybe you want to say Anthony is a tragic character in the film Crash who experiences but never connects with many people, showing how the community lacks cohesiveness. So that is a way to, again, you take the basics of it and then you make an argument about it. Or you could even combine these two. Anthony is a part of a subculture, and then you don't need to define it in your thesis statement, is a part of a subculture who is othered by the greater community, and therefore, even though he experiences many people, he does not connect with them. So that's how you can kind of play with your language and improve a statement into an argument. So some more examples of observation versus argument. So you don't want a good observation to trick you into thinking it's an argument. So statement of fact, smoking can cause health problems. Arguable thesis statement, the government should ban smoking altogether. Statement of fact, small cars get better fuel mileage than 4x4 pickup trucks. Arguable thesis statement, the government should ban 4x4 pickup trucks except for work-related use. Statement of fact, on average, people with college degrees earn more money in the workplace. Arguable thesis statement, a college degree should not be required for a blank profession. And then I would even take that one a step further and say, because it undermines the employees or the labor. So do you see how you can have an observation, but those observations aren't arguments? It might feel like an argument, but it's really not. So those second statements really are where the argument come in. Mistake number 2, not mentioning the text or argument until several paragraphs in, and then sometimes not until the second or third page. So you have to establish your argument immediately, especially in short papers. In a paper that is only 3 to 4 pages long, you don't need to take 3 paragraphs to get to your thesis. So I should know what you are working with and what you want to argue in your first paragraph. You need to establish that up front and quickly. And then finally, having another mistake that students make, or people make in general, having a decent thesis statement and then ignoring it for the entire paper until the conclusion. So think of a thesis as setting up key terms and concepts that you will explore throughout the paper. And once you do that, you need to touch base. So for example, if you're doing a stereotyping in the American Dream paper, then you don't have to repeat stereotyping in the American Dream in every paragraph. However, maybe one paragraph talks about the pursuit of happiness, and another talks about profiling related to stereotyping. Then maybe your conclusion brings it all together again with how stereotyping can hurt the American Dream through profiling. So you have different terms, and your paragraphs will touch on those terms in various ways. And then at the end, you bring it all together again. You shouldn't, like if you're talking about race in your thesis statement, you shouldn't have a random paragraph that's all about religion with no mention of race. So if that happens, then you need to either get rid of the religion paragraph or you need to add religion to your thesis statement. So one of those changes needs to be made. All right, so that's the end of our thesis statement lecture. I hope that this helped clarify some points, and I hope that the textbook reading helps as well. So we have an activity that is due within this next module. So it's a thesis statement activity that's paired with our textbook, and we'll also be workshopping our own thesis statements for our papers soon with classmates. So if you have any questions, let me know. If not, I look forward to speaking to you soon.